Okay, so you're now an established trainer. What have been your most memorable or happiest sort of achievement so far?
I think Gone to Lunch. We had so much fun with that. The first horse we had, which actually I did in association with Chris Popham back in the day, was a little mare called Purple Patch. She didn't win very many, but she was so consistent. But we had some fantastic days with that. But I think Gone to Lunch was what he managed to achieve. And then Melodic Rendezvous, obviously he was a great flag bearer for us. Winning the Tolworth obviously was a great day, but I mean he had a season that following season where we won the Kingwell, the Elite, and the big champion hurdle trial at Haydock. I mean he had a fantastic time then, and for a horse who actually was incredibly unsound, and that was in the end was his undoing. He had terrible knees. I think we achieved. I think we'd have struggled to have achieved any more with him. He was obviously had ability, but he didn't actually have the physique to go with it, which was a frustration. But on the other hand, I think we got the best out of him. And Unison was lovely to take a horse. That was our first, I think, flat winner. Take a horse off the flat and win flat races with him, and then turn him into a really pretty near top flight hurdler. I think he was a great horse for us.
Okay, you mentioned the flat. You've been a licensed flat trainer since 2016. So apart from the obvious, how does training flat horses differ from jumpers?
Pretty much we don't change too much. Look, we're not training 2-year-olds, but the sort of flat horses we've had have probably been racing already on the flat. And one of the things when Unison won, and I think it was George Baker jumped off it, and he said it's so nice to ride a flat horse that's actually fit. The one thing I think we're able to do is get horses fit, which maybe sometimes some of the flat trainers, they're concentrating so much on speed that maybe the fitness isn't there. And pretty much we train them the same way, probably not quite to the same intensity as some of the jumpers, but the worst thing about the flat for us is our location. You've got Bath, Salisbury, Chepstow, and everything else is miles away. So, I can't see us getting too big into the flat. But having said that, God, wouldn't it be lovely to have a staying flat horse that you could hoik round to those cup races? It would be another. I'm a great believer that if you keep doing something too long, you need a stimulus to try and keep your life enriched. So to try and take the step and train some better flat horses would be a great step to try and take. But obviously we need the backing to go with it.
Okay, now when I told a few of my punting mates that I was interviewing Jeremy Scott, and to a man they said, "Oh, he knows the time of day." Now, would you say you know the time of day when it comes to placing your horses and backing them, maybe?
Well, I don't think we're the worst people at getting things right. That we all make mistakes, but I think by and large, if you see one of our horses run, it'll be fit. Most of the time, it'll be in the right races. There are always reasons why you don't run in the right races. Lack of available opportunities, maybe an owner just physically doesn't want to go somewhere. So we're in the entertainment industry in terms of what we do with our horses, because ultimately we have a boss in terms of our owner, and it is their ultimate decision where horses run, and quite often it's a frustration that you run somewhere where, particularly when you run one in the same race as another horse, it might be the only available race for the next 3 weeks. So it's not there are times where I could place them better to win a race, but within the confines of what we have, and the people that we work for, you have to be sensitive as to their wishes. You can't ride roughshod over them just for my advantage rather than theirs.
So would a lot of your time be spent with your nose in the form book to try and find the right races?
I think between all of us, Camilla, Laura and myself, we spend a long time going through it. The right races for a lot of the horses stand out. You can pick out the perfect race, but very often it's at Carlisle or Ayr, which is, and for a five grand pot isn't really worth going to. So yeah, there are compromises to be made, but we spend plenty of time searching. So
would you say that is betting a part of the yard?
It's not part of my life. It's and most of my owners would not be gambling people. I've always taken the view that if you're an owner, then you don't want to have a trainer who you're not quite sure is running the horse for you, because he might be doing it for his own pocket. And when you're training a horse for somebody, it's a huge amount of money they're entrusting to you. Not just the value of the animal, but the actual monthly outgoings are huge. And I think it's my job to make sure that I'm doing that to the best of my ability and also in the most honest way I can. So I feel that if I'm the one that's doing the gambling, the only way I could do that would be on my own horses. And so not on somebody else's who's paying the training fees.
So would it put you under huge pressure if a known big gambling owner wanted to send you a horse?
I would train it in the same way that I would train everybody else's. I mean, you obviously if they want to gamble on their horse, that's up to them, and I will do my best to get it in a position that it can win a race or the race. But I've got to do it within the rules of racing and my own conscience. So look, of course I would do it, but I'm not. I've got to do it within the rules.
Now, arguably, you take even bigger gambles because you go to the sales and buy horses. Is it done on spec, or do you go as
pretty much? I very rarely would get an order for a young horse. If I go to a horses in training sale, then I more likely have an order for a horse. But I like to buy a few young horses every year, and be patient with them. I think the pressure to buy a 3-year-old, have it run in the spring as a 4-year-old, for an owner who's spent a lot of money is not necessarily doing the horse the biggest favour. To me, the only point of doing that is to sell the horse if somebody wants to make money on a horse. But I'd rather buy a horse, give it time, run it when it's ready, and if I'm in the fortunate position that I've got a farm, I can buy it, do a bit with it, put it away, bring it out, train it again and get it to a point where I know I can sell it to an owner and it'll be prepared and ready to go and win a race. I'd rather do that than, I don't know, I think you can be put under an awful lot of pressure if somebody spent a lot of money on a horse to get a result with it, which in the long term isn't for the benefit of the horse. And
do you have a type? Do you know what you're looking for? Or do you...
I mean, they do come in all shapes and sizes sometimes, but you're just looking for something that's athletic, looks to have the right temperament, and pedigree is obviously important. But I mean, we're never in a position to be able to buy the really flash pedigrees. But so type is far more important in that case.
Is it, talking of owners, is it a worry to you that across the industry, owners tend to be of the older demographic? And do you think that maybe young people should be targeted more? Or is that not the case with your owners?
Well, I think trouble is a lot of pressure on young people. They've got a lot more pressure on their finances, haven't they? But look, we've got some relatively young owners in the yard. They have a huge amount of fun, and hopefully they'll stay with us and grow with the job. But I think it is. If people have got kids and mortgages, you're probably only in a position to own a horse later on in life. But I mean, that's where these syndicates have come in, ownership groups. It does give the opportunity for youngsters to get a bit of an interest in the racing. But I think what we've got to do more is not so much enthuse people to get into racehorse ownership, because I think that's a long-term goal. But I think we have to get young people racing, get them enjoying racing, and appreciating maybe some of the subtler bits of racing. That it's one thing to go to a festival and spend your day in the bar, but it's actually another thing to actually go and have a look at a horse in the paddock and go and see it on the race course and actually really appreciate what a horse is capable of doing and what the jockeys are able to show, and really get to understand racing. So I think that's what we've got to really engage with the young to do.
And you mentioned syndicates. Do you actively encourage syndicates and racing clubs ownership in the yard?
Yeah, I mean, we have put together several syndicates, and as I say, it's a great way into racing without a huge financial burden. But what I find harder if you're going to go into racehorse ownership, the important bit is the ownership, because I've often found where we've maybe leased an animal that they don't actually feel part of that animal, and I think that there does seem to be it's much better for people to actually physically have a stake in it rather than an interest. Where I think sometimes the racing clubs don't work that well, because your commitment is relatively so small, you don't actually really feel part of it, and it is quite difficult to get that to work.
Okay, last couple of questions. What would you say, problems, don't want to be negative, but problems facing racehorse trainers and problems facing racing itself, pet hates of yours?
My biggest pet hate is it's non-stop. I think we and I know it sounds a bit old boyish, but back in the day where racing had a start and a finish, or national hunt racing had a start and a finish. It sort of finished at Stratford after the Hunter Chase evening, and then it started up in sort of August with Newton Abbot. And I think that it's unfortunately having jump racing all year round is, I'm sure mentally it's not good for trainers and jockeys. I think having a proper break allows people to top back up. Not just us, but the staff as well. We've got a problem with staff retention. I think we've got to give people a break. After all, that's what flat racing's for. Flat racing during the summer, no shortage of flat horses to run. If we compressed our season a little bit either end of the summer, and just give us a bit more of a break. But I think there's an awful lot of good in racing. I mean, I think you meet the most fabulous people in racing, one or two rogues, but they're interesting in their own right. We're so privileged to be in a sport that there's huge camaraderie in. We can have a huge amount of fun with dealing with animals that I think are just outstanding to deal with, and a horse that gives its all. That's quite something, isn't it? So I think there's a huge amount of good in racing. I think, we could all moan about leadership from the top, and there are bits and pieces obviously we'd like to tweak around, but I think if we can foster an appreciation of the animal and the people that we're dealing with, then we're it's a sport of kings, and I think we're lucky to be involved in it.
And finally, any burning ambitions that you've really got your sights set on?
Oh, it's always improving the quality of horse in the yard, and being able to compete at the higher level. I mean, we were lucky enough to go over to the Punchestown Festival, which I think is just the most fabulous festival. I mean, Cheltenham's great, don't get me wrong, but you have a huge amount of fun over in Punchestown, and it would be nice to have horses capable of competing, obviously at the top meetings, but also to take us on a journey abroad, see other parts of racing. I think it's constantly to just widen our net in terms of what we're able to do. So and of course I want to have Cheltenham winners and win a Grand National, all this kind of thing that every trainer would love to do. But I think it's just the experience of going, seeing new things, taking on new challenges. That's where we're looking forward.
Okay, we'll be watching with interest. Jeremy Scott, thank you very much.
Thank you.